a few items here. The first one is that he conceives human beings as beings in the world, not outside the world. We are here in this chaos, like Rebecca and you guys were saying, right? We are immersed in chaos. We are not outside of the world. We are in the middle of the chaos. So we are human beings in the world. That's one thing. This is not Freire. He's actually inheriting from other philosophers that were saying that. But he's also saying that human beings are in the world, being with the world, transforming the world. We are not tables. A table is in the world, but it's not transforming this world. We, human beings, created a table out of plastic, transformed some resources, and created this to transform our world. But the table is not really having a transformative act with the world, right? It's just an object. This is an object. But we human beings are in the world, within the world, not outside, but in the world. But at the same time, we are being with the world. We are transforming it. So we should not be static with the world we have. We have the ability of transforming it. So that's one idea that is important, and it's linked to the other one. He said the first vocation we have is to humanize, right? And he also says that the vocation every human being has, every human being, Moorish Americans, Cherokee, people who did not go to school, people who are in the most remote places of the world, they have a vocation to transform the world. So, do you have?
Yeah, vocation? Does that mean like vocation of job?
Okay, that's a question. Good question. Thank you, Jackie. That's good because that way we're on the same page. What's vocation? What does that mean?
Duty.
Duty?
Like a calling?
A calling? Oh my God! Have you seen the movie from the musical La Mancha, The Man of La Mancha? To dream the impossible dream. He calls it the quest, and he says that every human being it's a musical based on Don Quixote de la Mancha, and he says that every human being has a quest in life, a calling, a destiny of what you were supposed to do in the world. It's like that. Religious people, they use it as, oh, I have a vocation to be a nun. I have a vocation to be a priest. But we have vocations to be educators, we have a vocation to, we all have vocations, not only priests and nuns. We have a calling in life, some destiny, that was the reason why we were brought in this earth. And we gotta discover that, and that is an endless process, discovering everything. But Freire is saying that our vocation is to transform. We are all transformers. Do you remember that in the 80s there were those cartoons that Transformers? In a way, that's what he's saying in Spanish. Todos somos seres transformadores. No que nos hacemos como los Transformers, ¿verdad? Because they were changing shapes. The Transformers would change shapes. He's not meaning it in that sense. He's meaning that all human beings have the capacity to transform and act creatively on the world that we have in front of us. So that is a second idea that is very important. So if everybody has that vocation, why are there injustices? Why are they there? Why is discrimination? Because there are systems. Remember the second paragraph that we read from Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed just now. We have to realize there are unjust systems that are denying our true vocation to transform the world. So the third idea there is knowing subject. I don't know if the translation is the correct one, but in Spanish is el sujeto cognoscente, el sujeto que conoce, el sujeto que aprende. So we put it like that, the knowing subject. He says that every human being, little or adult or whatever, learns when acting and reflecting upon the world we live in. So the act of learning is not exclusive for, like I said before, going to school, people who went to the academia. It's actually part of human nature, learning. Learning is part of human nature. And that's why popular education is not to be only in the schools. It happens in life because learning happens everywhere. And it happens to everyone. Everybody is learning something. Sometimes it's bad things, but they're learning. We're all learning, right? So he's saying the knowing subject, which is every human being, learns when acting and reflecting. The little girl touching the stove. I got burned. So then she reflects, I'm not going to touch that. So I'm going to touch here and here, but not there. I learned because I acted, I got burned, and I reflected, and then the little girl is not going to touch the stove. So that little girl is in the process, is a knowing subject who learns that by acting upon the world and reflecting on it, she's learning. She's learning, she's going to get burnt. So the other thing that is very beautiful, and I said it briefly this morning, and I love the concept, is that we are unfinished beings. We are unfinished beings with a vocation to be more. Remember, he says our true vocation is to humanize and to be more. To humanize is to be more fully human, to be más, to ser más. No tener más, not to have more.
To be.
Not to do more, to be more. The ser más. It's very deep. It has to do with the being, not the doing, not the having. It's a very different concept of what really makes us truly human. So he says that we're unfinished projects. We are unfinished projects. And like I said this morning, who will really feel like satisfied with what you have achieved in life? No, we're still in the process. We are unfinished projects in the process of becoming more fully human. We can always learn to be more fully human. Always. We're always in that process of learning. Another thing that is really important, and we read it at the first paragraph, and that has to do with the essence of his philosophical posture, is the comparison he does with humanizing or humanization equals liberation, and then oppression equals dehumanization. So whenever there is oppression, whenever there is an injustice, whenever there is a situation where somebody is being denied his vocation to be truly human, then that is a dehumanization situation that needs to be addressed from an educational point and cannot be avoided. It has to be addressed. So another thing that we added here that I think is important, we read it today from his words, and I'd rather read his words. It is an unjust order that denies that true vocation for the oppressed, but, he adds, denies that true vocation for the oppressor. So oppression is bad, of course, for who are the victims. They suffer the most part of the pie. But oppression denies the humanization of the oppressed, but it's also denying the possibility of being more to the oppressors. So that's why it's so important to address the root causes of oppression that are in their multiple dimensions, and that include different dimensions, not only class, not only gender, not only race, different identities of oppression that are there, are present, and that we have to identify in order to reivindicate the possibility of being more human. And finally, we talked about the internalized oppression, the fear from freedom, and the wanting to be like the oppressor. I'd rather rephrase it, but these are points that are good. This other one has to do, so the first slide had to do with the concept of human being, right? We're beings in the world and with the world. We're beings learning because we act and reflect. We're beings that have the vocation to transform. All that has to do with the concept he had. He was very humanistic in his concept of human beings. But he has another proposal that is very revolutionary, and is his concept of knowledge. Who produces knowledge? Who produces knowledge? ¿Quién produce conocimiento? Who? Where does knowledge come from?
A creator.
Knowledge. Wisdom. Where is it coming from? Where is it?
Most knowledge today is coming from the winners of war. The winners of war. Because they don't educate people how they want to educate them.
Experience of doing stuff.
Yeah, and who are the experts producing knowledge? Where are they? Where are they usually concentrated? Who are the experts in producing knowledge that we all learn in schools, that we learn at the university? It's in the encyclopedias. It was scientists who produced it. It was the academics who, produced the books that we followed in school. So it's like all these experts are the producers of knowledge. They are the ones that are teaching us that Columbus did discover America, and we're repeating it. And that this nation was built by immigrants, forgetting that they were natives here, or slaves brought by force. So those experts of knowledge are the ones that are telling us what we should learn, right? Well, Freire has a concept of knowledge that has to do with the prior ideas. It is that, I think I said it before, that everybody produces knowledge, so it's linked to it. So now, popular education is an education that it's not indifferent to what is happening. It's not indifferent to the chaos that surrounds us in the exercise that we were talking about. It's an education committed to transforming that chaos. It's not an indifferent, neutral education. It takes a side. And the side that popular education takes is the side of the oppressed. Always. Sometimes, more on some issues, but like Reka maybe might have the time to share, in some other moments it has learned to identify other issues of oppression that happen here. So another idea that is important is the relationship between theory and practice, or action, reflection. And it's not the same idea, it's just simpler. So we act, anything that we do, even the most simpler thing we do, and then we reflect on it. And that way we produce knowledge. When we work in social movements, our practice, if we reflect on it, we are learning a lot from it. If we just do it and have practice but never reflect on it, we don't learn. So for instance, how many of your organizations do annual evaluations? Okay, annual evaluations are key to go back to the experience of the year, reflect on what we did, and learn from it. It is an act of knowledge, collective knowledge of what we did this year. So evaluations are very important. How many of the organizations here do systematizations? Oh, systematizations. Did I say it right? Is that the word in English? Systematizations. Sistematizaciones. So can you give us an example of where you've done it? Or?
Well, Becky was saying an example is whereas before we kind of just took requests from groups as they came without really like evaluating and planning and reflecting. Now we've created a system to do it based on our prior experience and evaluation. And I think we started systematizing a lot of things at CDC after going through the year of support and training with you all to look at if we're always just like going and going and going, we can do a certain amount of work, but if we create the time to evaluate and then out of that evaluation create systems, the work in the long run is more effective even though it seems so time intensive to do all of that.
Yeah, so it takes longer. It's not an annual evaluation. Sometimes it's 5, 10 years experience. You take all that practice accumulated by an organization and you learn from it by reflecting on what you did. It's the most important moment of producing theory out of practice, systematizations. And it's actually one of the most important goals of popular education, how to produce science out of the work we do. We could be scientifics, producing science of popular education, of the liberation of immigrants, of the liberation of the Cherokee. We could be producing science, but we're not documenting. We're not documenting what we do. We're not documenting our reflections. We're not documenting our lessons learned. So action and reflection, practice and theory. If we don't reflect on what we're doing, we're not going to elevate the kind of work we do and bring it to the scientific level. And we could, by doing systematizations, we could bring it to the scientific level. That's why we got to have more of that theoretical reflection of our own practice. So that's there too.